Alright, so we're starting work on this kind of maze solver thing that we're going to spend a couple days on. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build it. And even before we build it, we're going to actually make an assembly in Onshape. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to grab this document, the maze solver, and we're going to make a copy of it. And so we're going to say copy workspace. You'll change it. You'll say put your last name and your first name, and you create that copy. Okay, and then mine, I think, went into that folder, so I'm gonna move mine out of the folder real quick. Okay, so we've got this blank document. If you click over to here, you'll see this is the actual kind of like object that we're building. Okay, and so this is what we're going to create an assembly of, and we want to show like that rotation that we're going to get here. Okay, and then here we have individual components that were made for it. So this is like a servo bracket. This is the we're going to call the servo gimbal, and this is the actual servo. Okay, and you'll notice here that the servo is actually two pieces. So we have part one, that's the servo, and part two is our servo horn. Okay, and we can rename them here. So I'll say rename. So servo and servo horn. Okay, so we got that there. We got our servo horn, we got our servo. And so now we're going to create our assembly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import all of our parts. And so I'm going to go insert. So click that insert right there. And then we're going to get the full linkage. Okay? But remember, like I showed you, those servos had two parts. And so in the full linkage, the servos are kind of created as a single part. And so what we're going to do is, first I'm going to move all these things out of the way. But I want to go in now, and I need to delete the two servos. So I'm going to delete this one, just right click, delete this one too. That was weird. Delete. Huh. The labeling is wrong there. I'll have to fix that too. Okay, so we delete those two servos. And now we need to insert two of these servos. This one and that one. Get one more and one more. Okay. So now we have our servos inserted. And for whatever reason, the labeling on this guy is wrong. So let me fix that real quick. Okay, so I fixed the issue with the labeling, so now they're labeled correctly. Anyway, so we take all this stuff and we're going to put it over here. Okay. And so the method that we're kind of like the sequence of that we're going to assemble these is going to be the same sequence. You're going to physically assemble it, and that's why we're taking the steps. This is going to be kind of your instructions for putting it together. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to create a fasten mate, and we're going to fasten this kind of base piece to the origin. And so we're going to click right there, and we'll click right there. And so we have that base fastened to the origin. It's kind of our starting point. Everything's going to build off of there. Okay, so the first thing we have is this is kind of our servo bracket that's going to mount to the base. But before we put that on there, we have to actually put the servo on it. So we're going to put the servo in here. And again, this is the same sequence you would use to put everything together. So we're going to take this servo, and I'm going to attach it using this connector right there into that spot right there, just like that. So that's a fasten mate. And you can see if I leave it like that, it's kind of in the wrong spot. And so I need to open this up. I need to switch the direction of it like that. And that's better, but now I need to also rotate it until it's in the right spot. Okay? So for this one, to get it to work, I kind of had to flip the orientation. I had to rotate that axis so it was in place. And now these two objects are mated or attached to each other. Okay? So from here, I want to attach this. I'm going to slide it into that base there, using another fasten mate here. So we'll put the mate connector right there, and we'll put the mate connector right there, and you can see it moved into place, and you can see it kind of left that guy behind. If we press the check mark here, it will jump into place, or we can click solve right there, and you can see it jumps into place as well. Okay, so I got that at the base. And so now we want to attach our servo horn as well as our gimbal. And so this is the same sequence you're going to use when you build it yourself. Before we put this onto there, we actually want to attach it to our gimbal. And so we're going to use another fasten mate, okay? And we're going to go ahead and select this probably region right there. We're going to select this region right there, okay? And you can see it went into place kind of in the wrong spot here. So we want to flip the orientation, okay? And then I'm going to rotate it until it's in the right spot. And I think we're looking pretty good there. Yep, I think we're good there. Let me try doing a section view to verify. So we're going to make a section plane to be right here. Yep, that looks good. So it's attached to that kind of interface. It's exactly what we want. Okay? And so now we want to attach this onto our servo, and this is the same thing you'll do when you're building it, but we want to use a revolute mate because this time it's going to rotate. Okay? And so we want to select, for our mate connectors, we want to select the inner kind of opening right there. And then we want to select this kind of top face right there. Okay? And it's upside down, you can see. So we're going to click this to flip it over. And I also want to point straight up. So we're going to rotate it like that. Okay? And when I click the check mark, you'll see that piece rotate with it. All right? And so now I can rotate this on that servo, right? Now you can see I have 360 degrees of motion here, which on a servo I'm only going to have 180. And so to fix this problem, I'm going to have to add some limitations here. So we're going to add some limits, and we're going to set the minimum to -90 and the maximum to 90, right, to get our 180 degrees. Let's see. We're going to animate it so we can see our degrees of freedom there. And that's pretty close, right? To about 90, yeah. Okay. So the one thing that you're going to have to kind of sort out is that when you build this, if you don't put the servo horn on correctly, like if the orientation of the servo is in the wrong spot, when you attach the servo horn, you might need to detach. You might need to kind of rotate this and detach it because you want it when it's in the middle here to be at the center of motion for the servo. So this is something you're going to have to kind of try and kind of mess around with until you get it right, so you can get the full range of motion of your servo. Because if you do it wrong, you're going to end up in a situation like this, like -20 and like 160, something like that. And then this is going to be your range of motion on your servo, right? You don't want this. This isn't like how you want it to function. You're not getting the right range of motion there. So you want it to be as close to centered as possible. And so we'll fix it. So now we got our, let's see, let's double check we got it right. So we'll go -90 to 90. Okay, and we're good. And you can see we can kind of animate it. Looks good, doesn't go past 90. So that's how it's going to work. Okay, perfect. And so now we're going to basically build our next linkage. And so we've got to attach the servo to the other servo mount here. Okay, we'll use another fasten mate, and we're going to fasten it right there, and we're going to fasten right there. Okay, again, we're backwards, so we got to flip it, and then we got to rotate it. Okay, and there we go. We've got that in place. Now we can move that around. We want to do the same thing. We're going to attach the servo horn into this bracket using a fixed mate. So we're going to do fasten rather. So we're going to fasten this face to right there. And so we got to flip the axis here. Actually, it's facing the right way, so we just need to rotate it in this case. So depending on how you do it, you might have to flip it, you might just have to rotate it. Okay, and we're good, that one's done. Now we're going to put these two assemblies together with a revolute mate. And so we're going to select this little part right there. And then we're going to select this part right there. And it looks pretty good. We just want to rotate it 90 degrees. And click solve. Then here again we want to set those limits of -90 to 90. Okay. Now we'll animate it. We've got our -90 to 90. Perfect. Okay, so that one's done. So now we want to attach this one to here. So we're going to use, again, a fasten mate. And we're going to choose the very center of that face. And we'll choose the very center of this face right there. Okay, we're going to rotate it once, like that. And then we'll click solve to put this guy in place. And we're good. Make sure the rotation still works. Yep, got our 90 degrees there. Perfect. Okay. So now thinking about attaching this. So far, if you're building this like the physical one, you're going to have used 4 screws. So we're going to put a small screw in right here. And you'll put a small screw in right here. And they'll just cut threads into the plastic and it'll be fine. And then you'll put 2 screws, like one here and one there, and then you'll have a nut on the bottom to like hold them in place. Okay, and those will hold these 2 gimbals together. Those are going to fasten like that. Okay, so we got our gimbals attached. The next step here is we're going to finish off our assembly. We're going to attach the top of the maze, and so this is what you're going to do later once you build your actual maze. And so we're going to do a fasten mate between this point right there and that point right there. Okay, and then the last thing is we want to attach it to this face. So we want to basically attach the maze right here onto this face, and so we're going to use a fasten mate. I'm going to get a little bit more creative here, and we're going to actually grab the center of that circle and the center of that circle. Oh, grabbed the wrong one. Right there. Okay, and you can look at it and you can see it's actually not quite exact, right? Because there's a little bit of space there. So we're going to add an offset of about, let's see what in the Z direction, we'll say about 0.1. Nope. Be -0.1. Let's see if that's good. Now let's go -0.2, and that looks like we got it. Okay, so we had that little offset so it's centered. Now we have our maze attached, and you can see we can animate some of our assembly features here, and we can see how they rotate. So let's go ahead and we'll animate this revolute mate here. Right, so you can see that range of motion there. Okay. Now, one thing that's going to come up as you're programming this is, well, you don't really necessarily want it to go that far. And so one thing you're going to work on is you're going to figure out like a bounding of these angles that's a lot smaller, so you have like a little more control over it, right? So this is like -15 to 15. This could even be maybe too much. I don't know. It's up to you to decide that. But when we do this, you're going to kind of restrict those motions in the software so you can solve your maze with the controls. Okay, and so for as far as assembly goes, you're going to this guy will just slide into there. You'll have 1 screw right there. You're going to have 2 screws here and here. You'll have 1 screw right there, and then eventually you'll just put in a screw in either side of here to hold that in place. Okay, and so this is what you're going to be building, and then the next step, now that you've done the assembly of it, the next step is to get the parts in to physically build it.